Let's move on to our usual now, ClientLink and BandSelect. How do you configure those? The concept and the configuration on Converge Access is the same for ClientLink as on AirOS. It seems to be disabled, but it's not disabled. So I'm going not to spend too much time on this because it's very similar to what you saw before in the AirOS section, just to give you a few commands that you need to know if you ever want to disable this. Again, you probably don't need to remember those commands by heart. What you need to remember is the concept itself, but you need those commands, of course, if you want to modify your configuration on your live system. So if you want to check if ClientLink is enabled, you run the command show ap.11 2.4 or 5 GHz network, and then somewhere in the configuration, you'll see something which is beamforming. One great strength of the iOS XE is that it's very easy to pipe and just include a keyword that you want to see. There is an equivalent type of command on AirOS which is grep, G-R-E-P, and then you quote what you want to see, and then you enter the command that you want to run to see that extract, but it's not as easy to manipulate as on iOS XE. On iOS XE, provided that you do not forget the include, INC, you just type a part of the word that you want to see, you only see the line that is of interest to you. And as you can tell, by default, it seems that at global level, beamforming is disabled, which means that ClientLink is not enabled. But if I look at my access points, I have one here, and if I look at my access point configuration with show AP name and the name of the access point, space config.11 5 GHz, include the word of interest, and you see that here, just like on AirOS, in fact, beamforming ClientLink is enabled. So it seems to be disabled globally, but in fact, it's enabled on all the access points, and the AP config overrides the global config, so it's there. If you want to configure it, if you want to do it at the access point level, you can go AP name, you point to the access point, and notice we don't go conft here because we're configuring just the access point, so it's global mode. So you say AP name, you point to the AP, then .11, 2.4 or 5 GHz, and then in the options you have beamforming. And then you can say beamforming or no beamforming if you want to disable it. The thing is that on the iOS XE, the no has to be at the beginning of the instruction, and the instruction is not necessarily the entire line. So in that case, if I say no AP blah 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 beamforming, it fails because my instruction doesn't start at AP. It starts at the .11 5 gig part. So I have to put the no after the access point I'm pointing to. Just like on AirOS, you need to disable the radio if you want to disable it, but anyway, you probably don't want to disable beamforming, so I'm just showing you that so you know what the command looks like. If you wanted to disable the radio, you would just say AP name, point to the radio, shut, and then of course you could run the command. Don't forget no shut, and here again, because it is an instruction, you would not say no AP blah blah shut, you would say AP blah blah no .11 shut. So it's not no shut at the end, it's no .11 shut. And of course now if you say show AP name blah blah config.11 5 GHz and just include the part of interest, beamforming, now beamforming would be disabled on that radio. Alright, what about the global mode? Well, then now you have to go to conft, right? And then you say ap.11 2.4 or 5 GHz, and there you can say, if you question mark, beamforming, you see the keyword is there. So you can say beamforming, and that would be enabling the feature globally. And of course, as you can guess, you need to have the network disabled for this to work. But in my case, network is disabled, so I could run this command. So now if I say show global configuration, I see that beamforming is enabled. But if I say show configuration at the access point level, the configuration is disabled. Beamforming is not on the access point. Okay, so that's the command, but most likely you don't want to change the default. You just want to be aware that although it seems to be disabled globally, in fact it's working on each access point, so it's working globally. What about BandSelect? Well, this one is easier because it's graphical interface. So if you go to configuration wireless, we've seen that one already. These are the places where you configure the cycle threshold, the suppression when you forget, the threshold below which you don't care about the client probes, etc. So it's the same everywhere, right? On all Cisco systems, you configure the global setups here if you want to change them. Otherwise, you just keep the values if they are okay for you. And then you go at the SSID level where you enable the feature if you want it. So let's take test one as an example. You go to advanced as usual, and there is somewhere a BandSelect checkbox. Boom, check it, and it's on. Of course, as usual, it only makes sense if your SSID is dual band, right? If it's on the 5 gig and the 2.4. Otherwise, it's a pointless checkbox.